Hello, Com 181 public speakers. I am here today just to do a short video about your informative speech, which will be due next week. So when you're giving your informative, remember that it is a time for you to inform us, your audience, on something that you enjoy. I think one of the most important things about doing a speech and delivering a speech is finding a topic that you feel passionate about. Because if you feel passionate about it, then we, your audience, are also going to feel passionately about what you are saying. Remember that when you are working on this, to think about the language that you use. Not all of us are experts on what you may be an expert on. So watch your technical language. Make sure that we understand it. If you do use a technical word, don't assume that we know what you're saying. Go ahead, define it, give us an example so that we are fully engaged with you. Because if you think about audience analysis and thinking about your audience, you want to make sure that we know. And if any time we don't know something, we're going to think back to what that is versus paying attention to what you are saying next. So an example would be, I love theater and I have a degree in theater and I know a lot about theater, but I also know that if I'm giving a speech to you all, some of you may know about theater, but a lot of you may not know. So I can't use technical words and language that I don't think that you all would know. Because then if you go back to the communication cycle and that internal interference, all you're going to do is be thinking about, what did she mean when she said this? What does this word mean? What does this phrase? How does all of this work together to tell us? So you want to knock out a lot of those internal interferences by defining technical words, giving us an example so that we are on the same page with you. As you're designing your speech, you should be thinking about if you have a weak point. So if you have a really strong 2 points, and then your third one you feel good about, but it's not as strong as your first or your other two, put that weak one in the middle. Because we as an audience, if we're going to zone out at any point during your speech, it's going to be during that second point, right? And you have to remember as a speaker, something that you should know is that we are going to, at some point, zone out on what you're saying. It's not that we're not truly intrigued, but we as humans we sometimes don't have that focusing, right? That attention span. And when I watch speeches, I watch them during certain points. And if I'm in class in person and people are delivering speeches, I purposely give breaks so that we can get up and move so that we're more focused on what you're saying. Remember the frame of reference. Where do you think your audience is coming from? So remembering all of that, making sure that your speech is full of just very descriptive language, especially for your informative. If you're giving us an informative on a place, think about how can you get us to want to go there? You're not trying to persuade us, but you want to give us all that information. So your language should be really, really descriptive when you're giving that. We also want to see what you see. You can think of a speech as a story. You are a storyteller and you're telling us a story. I think it's really important as we are learning about public speaking and ourselves as public speakers, like what is our style, is to watch other public speakers. So I encourage you to watch, look up videos, look up of people that you think are really strong public speakers and watch their videos so that you get a sense of their style and what can you take away. Thinking back to pauses. If you want us to remember something, put a pause there so that we will be entranced and want to know more about it, right? I think back to Charles Booker when he had all of his, when he was campaigning and he had that slogan from the hood to the holler. And he would use that in his speeches so that we would remember that, right? So thinking about what can you use in your speech for us to remember your speech and what it's about. Pauses, a catchphrase almost, right? That you will sprinkle in within your speech so that we remember that. How can you make yourself stand out amongst all the other speeches and all the other speakers? So that's something to think about. As you're preparing to film it, make sure these things. One, make sure that you're practicing it every day. And because the speech is 5 to 7 minutes, this first one, and then your second one is 6 to 8, it doesn't take that long. It takes like 10 minutes a day. So when I'm preparing for a speech, I stand up. I always time it because I need to know where I am in time. And I also need to remember that sometimes I get nervous and I will speak up and I will speed through my speech. So giving yourself plenty of time to figure out your own patterns, right? So if your speech is 5 minutes on the dot, I would add a little bit more to it because you may speak faster and then it's going to be under the time limit. So always time it. Make sure you're within that time limit. The more you do it, the better you're going to feel about it. So you're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel like you're really ready to deliver this speech. And you don't have to look down as much. So for this first speech, I always look to see how much you look up, but really the first one is just about you getting up there and getting that speech out. As we go on, I want more and more of you to look up and to engage your audience. And so you'll see that note from time to time on that. Making sure that you feel comfortable, that you're able to look up and that your eyes aren't glued to your note cards. You can use note cards. You don't have to memorize your speech. Politicians and speakers, they all have teleprompters now, so nobody memorizes a speech. I'm not expecting you to, but I am expecting you to be prepared. So I would do it every single day. And in the age of filming, you can film it, and then if you don't like it, who's to say, I'm not going to know if you film it again. I want you to present the very best speech. After you present it and you upload it, along with your outline, I will give you comments. And so that's why it takes me longer to grade speeches, these graded ones like your informative and your persuasive, because I give comments on everyone's. So practice every day. Make sure that you're in time limit and make sure that you're making yourself rememberable. What can you do as a speaker to make us, your audience, want to listen, and not only listen, but to do whatever you're telling us and to be excited about it? What can you do? If you're excited and you feel passionate, we will too. Best of luck, and I can't wait to watch them.